I thought everyone would laugh when I kissed Garrett during the toast. It was just fun, right? Was I really that wrong for having fun at my own party? Everyone laughed, everyone cheered, and it was just one kiss. Harmless, playful, the kind of thing confident couples do. But now I wonder if I traded my marriage for one moment of attention and applause. My name is Seraphine Lyle, but everyone calls me Sarah. I am 34 years old and I work in pharmaceutical sales, which means I spend most of my time charming doctors and closing deals. I have always been good with people. I know how to read a room, how to make someone laugh, how to turn a tense moment into something light. My husband Ethan says I have a gift for it, though lately he has been saying it in a different tone, one that sounds less like a compliment and more like a warning I choose not to hear. We had been married for 7 years when the anniversary party happened. Ethan is a civil engineer, quiet and steady, the kind of man who plans everything 3 steps ahead and keeps his promises. I used to think that was boring. I still do sometimes. But I also know he loves me in a way that is patient and deep, even when I test that patience more than I should. The party was held on a rooftop bar terrace, the kind of place with string lights draped between poles and a fire pit in the corner that crackled and sent sparks into the dark sky. The air smelled like smoke and champagne, and the fizz of bubbles popping in plastic flutes was constant background noise. 40 people showed up, most of them our friends, some family. Ethan's parents, Douglas and Carmen, stood near the railing with their coats still on, smiling politely but looking a little out of place in the crowd of younger, louder guests. I had been drinking since we arrived. Not too much at first, just enough to feel loose and confident, the way I always do when I am the centre of attention. Garrett Finch was there too. He is my best friend, has been for years, a graphic designer with a sharp jaw and an easy laugh. He always knows how to keep a joke going, how to make me feel seen. Ethan tolerates him, but I know he does not like how close Garrett and I are. He has never said it directly, but I can tell by the way his jaw tightens when Garrett texts me late at night or when I mention meeting him for coffee. Around 10 o'clock, Lena Kovacs, a photographer I work with, announced it was time for a toast. She held up her phone and started gathering people near the fire pit. I was already tipsy, my cheeks warm from the alcohol and the flames. Garrett was standing next to me, grinning, and I grabbed his hand without thinking. The crowd cheered. Someone handed me a microphone. I do not remember deciding to do it. I just leaned in and kissed Garrett on the mouth. It lasted 3 seconds, maybe 4, long enough for the cheering to stop and the silence to settle like a weight. When I pulled back, I saw Ethan standing by the railing. His face was blank, the kind of blank that comes before anger or grief, and his hands were gripping the cold metal so hard his knuckles looked white. Douglas was next to him, staring at me with his arms crossed. Carmen had her hand on Ethan's shoulder, but she was looking at me too, and her expression was not warm anymore. I laughed. I do not know why. Maybe because I was drunk, or maybe because laughing was easier than admitting I had done something wrong. I walked over to the railing and tried to hug Ethan, but he stepped back. He asked me quietly why I had done that in front of everyone, in front of his parents, at our anniversary party. I told him it was just fun, that Garrett and I were joking around, that he was being dramatic. He did not raise his voice. He just asked me again, slower this time, why I thought kissing another man was a joke when he could see Garrett's hand on my waist before it happened. I remember the detail that stuck with me later, the one I tried to ignore. The Polaroid camera had been going around all night, and someone had taken a photo of the kiss. The flash went off right as I pulled away from Garrett. I saw the print slide out of the camera and someone handed it to Lena. She smiled nervously and tagged it on Instagram before I could ask her not to. Ethan left the terrace early. He told his parents he was going home and asked if they wanted a ride. Carmen hugged me briefly, but it felt formal, like she was hugging a stranger. Douglas did not say anything. They left together. I stayed at the party for another hour, laughing with Garrett and telling anyone who asked that Ethan was just tired. We drove home separately. I took a rideshare because I was too drunk to drive. When I got to the apartment, Ethan was sitting on the sofa in the living room. The lights were off except for the glow from the street outside. He did not look at me when I walked in. I tried to sit next to him, but he moved to the chair across the room. He asked me what I expected him to accept as normal after what had happened. I told him he was being insecure. He pointed to his phone on the coffee table and said Lena had already posted the photo. It was tagged with our location and both our names. 87 people had liked it. 22 had commented, most of them asking if he was okay with it. I told him people were overreacting. He asked me if I thought his parents were overreacting when they left without saying goodbye. I said they were just old-fashioned. He stood up and walked to the bedroom without another word. I heard the door close quietly, not slammed, just closed with a soft click that felt worse than shouting. I stayed on the sofa and scrolled through my phone. The photo was everywhere. Friends were sharing it, strangers were commenting, and Garrett had replied to one of the comments with a laughing emoji. I screenshotted a few of the responses, not sure why, maybe to show Ethan later that it was not a big deal. But when I looked at the photo again, really looked at it, I saw his face in the background. He was standing at the railing, staring at me, and his expression was not angry. It was something else, something I did not want to name. By the time I went to bed, Ethan was already asleep or pretending to be. I lay on my side of the mattress and listened to him breathe. The next morning, I woke up to 2 notifications on my phone. One was a text from Garrett asking if everything was okay. The other was a screenshot from someone I did not know, showing the photo with the caption about party vibes and a fire emoji. Ethan's phone was on the nightstand, screen dark, but I could see he had saved something before going to sleep. I did not ask him what it was. The first real conversation happened 3 days after the party. Ethan had been quiet. Not cold exactly, but distant in a way that made me nervous. He went to work early and came home late. He answered my questions with 1 or 2 words. I told myself he was just processing, that he would get over it once he saw I was not going to change anything. On Tuesday, I went to pick up a prescription at the pharmacy near my office. The line was long, and I stood there scrolling through my phone, half listening to the woman ahead of me complain about wait times. I did not see Tasha Finch until I was almost at the counter. She is Garrett's younger sister, a junior accountant who works in the same building as me. She waved from a few people back in the line. I waved back, then turned away quickly, hoping she would not want to chat. Later, I found out she mentioned seeing me to Mira Holt, one of our mutual friends who works in HR. Mira started asking questions after that. I did not know it at the time, but Tasha had noticed I was texting and laughing, and she told Mira it looked like I was flirting with someone. I was. I was texting Garrett. That night, Ethan came home and found me in the living room. He sat at the dining table and opened his laptop. I was on the sofa, half watching a show. He asked me where I had been during the day. I said I had coffee with Garrett after work. He looked at me for a long moment, then asked why I felt the need to post a story tagging Garrett when I knew it bothered him. I told him he did not get to decide who my friends were. He pointed to his phone, which was on the table next to his laptop, and said the story was posted at 2:43 in the afternoon, during work hours. He asked me what meeting I had skipped to go to the cafe. I felt my face get hot. I told him he was tracking me like I was a child. He said he was not tracking me, he was reading what I posted publicly. Then he asked me why my contact name for Garrett had a sun emoji next to it. I did not know he had seen that. I said it was just a joke. He asked me what was funny about it. I did not answer. He leaned forward, his hands flat on the table, and said he needed me to explain why I met Garrett alone twice that week after what happened at the party, and whether I understood how it looked to everyone who saw the posts. He said he could not continue in a marriage where public disrespect was treated as normal. Then he suggested we talk to a counselor together, just once, to see if we could agree on boundaries. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I did not know what else to do. I told him he was the one who needed therapy if he thought meeting a friend for coffee was disrespect. He asked me one more question, slow and deliberate. He asked what time I left the cafe and why my location tag showed I was still there at 4:17 when I had told him I was back at the office by 3:30. I stood up and said he was obsessed with control. I told him men always police women's friendships and it was a red flag. I refused counselling. I said if he could not trust me, that was his problem, not mine. He closed his laptop without responding. I went to the bedroom and slammed the door. The next day, I met Garrett again. This time we went to an open-plan co-working cafe downtown, the kind of place with big windows and long communal tables. We sat in a booth near the window. He ordered an espresso and I got a latte. We talked about work, about the party, about how Ethan was being unreasonable. Garrett laughed and said Ethan was probably losing his mind. I leaned in, feeling the warmth of the attention, the way Garrett looked at me like I was interesting and fun instead of a problem to solve. He touched my hand briefly while making a joke, and I did not move it away. A co-worker from my building walked by outside and waved. I waved back, still leaning toward Garrett. I posted a story from the cafe. Just a quick photo of my latte with a casual caption and the location tagged. Garrett was in the edge of the frame, smiling. I thought it was harmless. I thought it was my life, and I could share it if I wanted. That evening, Ethan tried again. He was calm, almost eerily calm, in a way that made me more nervous than if he had yelled. He sat across from me in the living room and said he wanted to talk. I rolled my eyes but stayed seated. He said he noticed the cafe story and asked me to explain why I felt the need to meet Garrett alone again, and whether I understood how it looked after everything. He pointed to my phone, which was on the coffee table, and said my screen showed a message preview from Garrett with a fire emoji. He asked me what that was about. I told him he was reading into things that did not mean anything. He said he was not reading into anything. He was reading exactly what was there. He asked me if I was willing to stop meeting Garrett alone and stop posting about him, and if I would agree to go to counselling. He said if I could not do that, he did not know how we could move forward. I told him he was trying to control my social life, and I was not going to let him. He asked me what I expected him to accept as normal behaviour for a married woman. I said real men did not get jealous over coffee. He nodded slowly, like he was taking notes, and then he stood up and went to the bedroom. Later that night, I saw a calendar reminder pop up on his laptop screen while he was in the kitchen. It said Oak Street, 3:15 p.m., Friday. I asked him what it was. He said it was a work errand and changed the subject. I shrugged and went to bed. I did not think about it again until later. Friday came and went. Ethan left the apartment early and came back just before 7 that evening. He seemed different, calmer, quieter, like he had made a decision but was not telling me what it was. When I tried to pick a fight about something small, he did not react. He just nodded and said he heard me. It unsettled me more than shouting would have. That weekend, I checked my social media and saw that 2 of my friends, including Lena, had unfollowed me. I laughed it off when Garrett asked about it, but something cold settled in my chest. On Saturday morning, I walked into the bedroom and saw Ethan organising papers into a thin binder labelled Auto. I asked him what he was doing. He said he was getting things in order. I asked why. He did not answer. On Sunday evening, I got a text from Mira. It was short and careful. She asked if we could talk. I replied asking what about. She said she had seen something and wanted to check in. I told her I was fine and did not need to talk. She did not reply after that. Ethan's phone buzzed a few minutes later. I saw the notification preview before he picked it up. It was from Mira. It said, "Can we talk? I saw something." He replied, "Not yet, but thank you." I asked him what Mira wanted. He said it was work. I did not believe him, but I did not push. That night, I tried to sleep but could not stop thinking about the unfollows, the texts, the way Ethan had stopped arguing. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamed about the party, about the Polaroid flash, about Ethan's face at the railing. When I woke up, he was already in the kitchen, organizing more papers. Lena decided to host a second anniversary event 2 weeks later, a photo reshoot for friends who had missed the original party. I thought it was a nice gesture. Ethan thought it was a trap, though he did not say that directly. He just asked me if I thought it was a good idea to go. I told him I was going with or without him. He said he would come with his parents. That surprised me, but I did not argue. The event was held at a community centre hall, a big space with hardwood floors and folding tables set up along the walls. 30 people showed up. The room smelled like catered appetizers and floor wax. A DJ played soft pop music in the corner. Lena had set up a Polaroid station near the back with a backdrop and props. I arrived with Garrett. Ethan arrived separately with Douglas and Carmen. They stood near the entrance, coats still on, watching. I grabbed Garrett and pulled him toward the photo station. Lena was adjusting the lighting. I insisted we take a fun photo, something that would show everyone I was not going to change just because Ethan was upset. I wrapped my arm around Garrett's neck and leaned in close. He grinned. The Polaroid clicked and the print slid out, showing me pressed against Garrett's shoulder, both of us laughing. Lena tagged it immediately. Ethan watched from across the room. His face was neutral, but his father had his arms crossed, and his mother was whispering something to him. Then I did something I regret now, though at the time it felt justified. I grabbed the microphone from the DJ stand without asking and made a toast. I was already tipsy. I thanked everyone for coming and singled out Garrett as the best friend a girl could ask for, someone who never judged me. I made a joke about how some people in the room could learn to relax. The crowd laughed nervously. I did not look at Ethan when I said it, but I knew he heard. When I finished, I set the microphone down and took a bow. A few people clapped. Most did not. Ethan left through the side door without saying anything. Douglas put a hand on his shoulder as he walked out. I followed him to the parking lot a few minutes later, still holding a plastic cup of wine. He was standing by his car, keys in his hand. I asked him why he was leaving early again. He looked at me for a long time before he spoke. Then he asked me why I needed an audience to humiliate him, and whether I had planned the toast or if it just happened. He mentioned that the microphone was already in my hand at 7:18, 4 minutes before the scheduled toast time. He pointed to the cord which was tangled around my wrist. He asked if I had rehearsed the line about people who never judge me. I laughed and told him he was pathetic for keeping track of timestamps. I said if he were a real man, he would be confident enough to laugh it off. I called him boring. I told him I deserved excitement. He stood there, silent, then got in his car and drove away. I yelled after him, but he did not stop. The next day, Carmen hosted a small family barbecue at their backyard. Ethan went alone. I showed up 40 minutes late, saying I had been at brunch with friends. During lunch, Douglas asked me politely about my job. I made a dismissive joke about Ethan's engineering work, saying he built spreadsheets, not real things. Carmen's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Douglas's face went hard. Ethan excused himself to help with dishes. Carmen followed him inside. Through the window, I saw her put her hand on his arm and say something quiet. When they came back out, she did not look at me the same way. That evening, Ethan tried to talk to me again. We were in the living room. He asked me why I felt the need to humiliate him in front of his parents, and whether I understood that our home and family stability were at risk. He mentioned the care package his mother had sent him earlier that week, which was sitting on the hallway table still unopened by me. He said he needed me to stop meeting Garrett alone, stop posting about him, and agree to joint counselling. He said if I could not do that, he could not continue living like this. He offered to pause all public events for a month and focus on private repair, if I was willing to be honest. Then he asked me the question I could not answer. He asked why. If nothing was wrong, Mira had felt the need to print out screenshots and confront me. He asked what Garrett had texted me at 9:03 the night before. I had been in the shower when the text came through, but Ethan had seen my phone light up on the counter. I stopped walking. I turned to him and told him he was trying to control my life. I accused him of teaming up with his mother and weaponizing his family. I said men always do this, make women feel crazy for wanting freedom. I told him the marriage was suffocating and maybe we needed space. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded and said he heard me. Then he walked back to the apartment alone. I stayed on the path for another 10 minutes, angry and confused about why he had not fought back. 2 days later, Ethan packed a small duffel bag and said he was staying with a friend for a few days to think. I panicked. I asked if he was leaving me. He said no, he just needed space. I tried to hug him. He stepped back gently and said he would text me. Then he left. I sat on the bed and stared at my phone. I texted Garrett. I said Ethan was being insane and asked if we could talk. Garrett replied an hour later saying he was busy but would call soon. He did not call. That Saturday, Ethan visited his parents again. They sat on the back porch. Douglas asked him what his plan was. Ethan said he was working on it and asked them to trust him. Carmen asked if he needed anything. He said he just needed them to be there. They hugged him. They did not ask more questions. When Ethan came back to the apartment on Monday, I was waiting. I tried to talk it out, to explain that I had not meant to hurt him. He was polite but distant. I saw that he had moved more clothes out of the bedroom closet into the hallway closet. I asked what he was doing. He said he was organizing. I accused him of planning something. He did not deny it. He just said he was making sure everything was clear. I felt the ground shift under me, but I did not know why. That Wednesday, Ethan cancelled our joint streaming subscription without telling me. I found out when I tried to log in and the account was gone. I confronted him. He said calmly that he was cutting unnecessary expenses. I asked why he had not asked me first. He said he did not think it mattered since I was rarely home. His tone was not angry. It was just factual. That scared me more than shouting ever could. On Friday, I got a message from Garrett. He said he was untagging himself from my recent post and asked me to stop tagging him. I asked why. He said my husband's friend had talked to him and he did not want drama. I asked who. He did not say. I realized someone was reaching out to people in my circle, warning them, cutting me off. I suspected Ethan, but I had no proof. The next morning, I saw a red circle on the wall planner in the kitchen. It was 3 weeks away. No label. I asked Ethan what it was. He said it was a reminder. I asked for what. He said I would find out. I tried to push, but he just smiled faintly and left for work. I stood in the kitchen alone, staring at the date, feeling something cold settle into my bones. By the 4th week, I could feel everything slipping. Friends were not replying to my texts. Lena had stopped inviting me to events. Garrett was barely responding. Even my co-worker Tasha, Garrett's sister, was avoiding me in the office hallways. I told myself they were all being dramatic, but the silence was louder than I wanted to admit. On a Wednesday evening, Ethan suggested we take a walk along the riverside embankment to clear the air. I agreed, thinking maybe this was my chance to fix things. The path was quiet. The wind off the river was cold and the streetlights were just turning on, casting long shadows on the pavement. We walked in silence for 3 minutes. Then Ethan stopped and turned to me. He asked me if I understood that our home and family stability were at risk, and whether I was willing to prioritize the marriage over public validation. He pointed to the care package his mother had sent him, which was still sitting on the hallway table at home, unopened by me. He said he needed me to stop meeting Garrett alone, stop posting about him and agree to joint counselling. He said if I could not do that, he could not continue. He offered to pause all public events for a month and focus on private repair, if I was willing to be honest. Then he asked me why, if nothing was wrong, Mira had printed out screenshots and confronted me. He asked what Garrett had texted me at 9:03 2 nights before, when my phone had lit up on the bathroom counter while I was in the shower. I felt anger rise in my chest. I stopped walking and told him he was trying to control my life. I accused him of teaming up with his mother and weaponizing his family against me. I said men always do this, make women feel insane for wanting freedom. I told him the marriage was suffocating and maybe we needed space. He stood there listening, his face calm. When I finished, he nodded and said he heard me. That was all. He did not argue. He did not defend himself. He just turned and walked back toward the apartment. I stood on the path, confused and furious, and watched him disappear into the distance. Later that night, I tried a different approach. I sat next to him on the sofa in the living room and softened my voice. I told him I had not meant to hurt him. I said I would dial back the posts and be more careful about how things looked. I touched his hand and said I loved him and wanted to fix this, but only if he stopped tracking my every move. I asked him to trust me. He looked at my hand, then at my face. He asked me directly if I was willing to stop seeing Garrett entirely, even as friends. I hesitated. I told him that was not fair. He nodded slowly, pulled his hand back, and said he appreciated me trying, but he needed actions, not promises. I got angry again. I accused him of moving the goalposts. He stood up, said he was going to bed, and left me sitting alone. The next morning, I woke up to find Ethan packing a duffel bag. I asked where he was going. He said he was staying with a friend for a few days to think. I panicked. I asked if he was leaving me. He said no, just that he needed space. I tried to hug him. He stepped back gently and said he would text me. Then he walked out. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at my phone and texted Garrett. I said Ethan was being insane and asked if we could talk. Garrett replied an hour later saying he was busy. He did not offer to meet. That Saturday, Ethan went to his parents' house. They sat on the back porch with mugs of coffee. Douglas asked him what his plan was. Ethan said he was working on it and asked them to trust him. Carmen asked if he needed anything. He said he just needed them to keep being there. They hugged him and did not ask for details. On Monday, Ethan came back to the apartment. I was waiting, ready to talk. He was polite but distant. I saw that he had moved even more of his clothes from the bedroom into the hallway closet. I asked what he was doing. He said he was organizing. I accused him of planning something behind my back. He did not deny it. He just said he was making sure everything was clear. I felt the ground shift again, but I could not figure out what was happening. On Tuesday, Ethan had another appointment. His calendar reminder popped up on his laptop. Downtown, 4 p.m. I asked what it was. He said it was personal and dismissed it. When he came back that evening, he was different again. He no longer engaged when I tried to provoke him. He spent the evening organizing bills, taking photos of joint account statements, and backing up text threads on his phone. His phone was always charged, always near him, always face down. I saw him wearing headphones in the hallway for a call. I assumed it was work. It was not. On Wednesday, something small but sharp happened. Ethan cancelled our joint streaming subscription without warning. I discovered it Thursday night when I tried to log in, and the account was inactive. I confronted him. He said calmly that he was cutting unnecessary expenses. I asked why he had not consulted me. He said he did not think it mattered since I was rarely home anyway. His voice was not angry. It was just factual, like he was reading a grocery list. That scared me more than yelling ever had. This was the moment I should have understood. He had stopped negotiating. He had stopped asking. He was just acting. On Friday, I received a notification from Garrett. He had untagged himself from my latest post and sent me a message asking me to cool it for a bit. I asked why. He said someone had talked to him and he did not want drama. I asked who. He did not answer. I realized then that someone was reaching out to people in my circle, warning them, isolating me. I suspected Ethan, but I had no proof and no way to stop it. Saturday morning, I walked into the kitchen and saw a red circle on the wall planner. It was marked 3 weeks out. No label. I asked Ethan what it was. He said it was a reminder. I asked for what. He said I would find out when the time came. I tried to push, but he just changed the subject and left for a run. I stood in the kitchen staring at that circle, feeling a chill creep up my spine. Carmen and Douglas stopped responding to my texts. Mira sent me a message saying she could not support what I was doing anymore. Even Tasha, who had always been friendly in the office, started taking different routes to avoid me. I was being cut off, piece by piece, and I did not know how to stop it. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself Ethan was bluffing. I was wrong. By the 5th week, I was desperate. The silence from my friends was unbearable. My social media posts were getting fewer likes. People who used to comment were scrolling past. Garrett had stopped replying entirely. I needed to prove that I was still in control, that I was still the fun, honest, confident person everyone loved. So I made a choice I cannot take back. On a Thursday evening, I posted an Instagram story. It was a photo of a self-help book with the caption, "Learning to deal with people who can't handle your growth," followed by a flexed arm emoji and hashtags about self-care and freedom. I tagged 3 friends, including Mira, and added a location tag for our neighborhood. I thought it was clever. I thought it would show everyone that I was the victim, not Ethan. I did not think about what it would look like to him or to anyone who had been watching. Ethan saw it while making tea in the kitchen. I know because I saw him glance at his phone, pause, and then open an app. He took a screenshot. He did not say anything. He just saved it and put his phone back in his pocket. That should have been my warning. The next evening, Ethan tried one last time. He sat across from me in the living room, hands folded in his lap, and said he wanted to talk. I was already annoyed. I rolled my eyes but stayed seated. He said his phone had 12 unread messages from people he had not spoken to in months, all asking if he was okay because of my posts. He asked me, for the last time, if I was willing to sit down with him the next day, no phones, no friends, and have an honest conversation about whether I wanted to stay married or not. He said if I could not do that, he would assume I had made my choice and would act accordingly. He offered one final option: couples counselling with a neutral professional scheduled for next week, or he would move forward alone. Then he asked me the question I could not dodge. He asked why, if I truly believed I had done nothing wrong, I needed to post publicly about him instead of talking to him. He pointed to my phone on the coffee table, which was lighting up with comments. He asked if those strangers' opinions mattered more than our marriage. I laughed bitterly. I told him he was trying to trap me. I accused him of playing lawyer and making threats. I said our friends agreed with me and his family was brainwashed. I told him I would not be bullied into counselling. I said if he wanted to leave, he should just leave. Then I walked into the bedroom and slammed the door. I heard him sit down at the dining table. I heard the quiet click of his laptop opening. I did not go back out. That Friday evening, Mira invited Ethan to her apartment. She handed him a USB drive. She said she had been saving screenshots, tagged photos, and time-stamped posts since the anniversary party because something felt wrong. She explained that she had documented everything, not to hurt me, but because she thought Ethan might need proof someday. She asked if he was okay. He said he would be. She asked if he needed her to write a statement. He said yes. They sat in silence for a moment. Mira apologized for not speaking up sooner. Ethan told her it was not her fault. When Ethan came home Saturday morning, I was on the sofa. He sat in the chair across from me and said calmly that he had thought about my answer and understood I did not want to work on the marriage. I started to argue. He held up a hand and said he was not asking anymore. He said he would handle the situation appropriately and fairly, and I would hear from him soon. I asked what that meant. He said I would understand when the time was right. His tone was final, emotionless, polite. I felt a cold knot in my stomach, but I convinced myself he was bluffing. On Monday, Ethan had another appointment. The calendar reminder on his laptop said Civic Center, 2:30 p.m. When he returned, he was different. He was hyper-organized. Bills were sorted. Documents were stacked. Passwords had been changed on shared accounts. I saw him place a thin binder into a locked desk drawer. I heard the faint click of the lock. I asked what he was doing. He said he was organizing our records just in case. I laughed nervously and asked, "In case of what?" He did not answer. On Wednesday, he had a fifth appointment. The calendar entry said, Office Park, 10 a.m. When he came back, he was completely detached. He no longer explained his actions. He spoke only about logistics, bills, schedules, apartment maintenance. When I tried to provoke him, he nodded and said he understood my perspective. That night, he moved the last of his personal documents into the locked drawer and placed a sticky note on the fridge. It said, Appointment, Friday 9 a.m. I asked what appointment. He said it was personal and I did not need to worry. I demanded to know. He smiled faintly and said I would find out soon enough. Then I made my final mistake. On Thursday evening, I went to a downtown bar with Garrett. I did not tell Ethan. I just went. We sat in a corner booth, ordered drinks, and talked like old times. I felt validated again, seen again, like I mattered. I took a selfie of the two of us, posted it to Instagram with the caption, "Real friends show up when others walk away," followed by a beer mug and red heart emoji. I tagged Garrett and the location. I thought it was perfect. I thought it proved I was fine, that I did not need Ethan or anyone who doubted me. Mira saw the post within minutes. She screenshotted it and forwarded it to Ethan with a message that said, "I'm sorry. This is who she is." I did not know that until later. I did not know that post had just been saved by multiple people and would become part of a formal record. Friday morning, Ethan's phone alarm went off at 6:45. The label said, "Final step." I asked what it meant. He turned off the alarm, put on his jacket, and said he had an appointment downtown. I asked if I should come. He said no. I watched him leave. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. An hour later, I got a text from Garrett. It said, "Your husband's lawyer called me. What the hell is going on?" I tried calling Ethan. He did not answer. I texted him. He replied 2 hours later with one sentence. He said I would hear from him through proper channels. That was when I knew. That was when the ground I had been standing on disappeared. Friday morning, I arrived at my office building at 8:47. The lobby was crowded with people scanning badges and waiting for elevators. Fluorescent lights glared off the polished floor. I was scrolling through my phone, still angry about Ethan's cryptic message, when a man in a dark suit approached me. He asked my name. I confirmed it. He handed me a thick manila envelope and said I had been served. People turned and stared. I felt my face go hot. I ripped open the envelope right there in the lobby. Inside was a petition for dissolution of marriage. The title read, Lyle versus. Lyle. Attached were temporary financial orders freezing our joint credit accounts, a motion for exclusive use of the apartment pending division, and a notice of a formal HR complaint filed by Ethan. The complaint alleged that my social media posts violated company policy by publicly naming him and his co-worker Owen, creating reputational harm and a hostile professional environment. The exhibits were labelled clearly. Exhibit A, the Instagram story from the anniversary party. Exhibit B, a screenshot archive compiled by Mira. Exhibit C, a written statement from Owen confirming public humiliation at a work event. My hands shook. The elevator chimed. I did not get on. I tried calling Ethan. Straight to voicemail. I texted him, asking if he was serious. No reply. I stood in the lobby, frozen, while people walked around me. At 10:34, I was called into the HR conference room. Two representatives sat across from me with a file folder open between them. They explained that a formal complaint had been filed alleging I violated company's social media policy by posting identifiable information about a third party and a co-worker in a manner that created harm. They showed me printed copies of my posts, time-stamped and highlighted. I tried to laugh it off. I said it was personal. They said the policy covered all public posts referencing colleagues or partners of colleagues. They asked if I understood. I said yes. They told me an investigation was opened and I was placed on paid leave pending review. By 11:10, I was escorted out of the building. Co-workers watched in silence. I went home. The apartment was quiet. Ethan's side of the closet was almost empty. A note was on the dining table. It said all joint accounts were frozen as of noon per the temporary order. My personal account remained active. Apartment access would be discussed at mediation. The hearing date was circled, 3 weeks away. It told me to direct all communication through the provided contact information. I tried calling him again. Voicemail. I texted Garrett. He replied saying he could not be part of this and he was sorry. I texted Mira. No reply. I scrolled through my contact list. No one answered. Over the next 10 days, my life came apart in pieces. The landlord sent a notice about lease modification and asked for a forwarding address. I found a sublet with a co-worker I barely knew. The deposit drained half my savings. I tried to use a joint credit card at dinner one night. Declined. The waiter looked at me with pity. I paid with a backup card and left without ordering dessert. The group chat I used to dominate went silent. I posted a story asking where everyone was. 2 people viewed it. No one replied. Lena unfollowed me. Tasha sent a message saying Garrett asked her to tell me to stop contacting him. HR's investigation took 2 weeks. I was cleared of legal wrongdoing but received a formal written warning for unprofessional public conduct. Co-workers avoided me in hallways. My manager moved me to solo projects. The social capital I had relied on was gone. Garrett blocked my number after I called him 6 times in one night. I tried to meet another friend for coffee. She cancelled last minute with no reschedule. I sat alone at the cafe for 20 minutes, then left. The barista did not recognize me anymore. On day 12, I sent Mira a long email. I explained that Ethan had overreacted and everyone had abandoned me. She replied with one sentence. She said I had every chance to stop and I chose humiliation over honesty. She hoped I would learn. I deleted the thread. On day 16, I texted Ethan from a new number, asking if we could talk. He replied 3 hours later. He said all communication went through mediation and asked me not to contact him directly again. He blocked the number before I could reply. I thought the kiss was harmless. I thought posting my life was honesty and confidence. I thought Ethan was jealous and my friends would always back me up because I was the fun one, the real one, the one who lived out loud. But the records did not lie. The timestamps, the witnesses, the screenshots all told a story I could not rewrite. The attention I craved became evidence. The confidence I performed became proof of cruelty. And the people I thought would clap for me walked away in silence, leaving me with nothing but my own voice, echoing in an empty apartment I could no longer afford. The hearing happened 3 weeks later. I did not contest. Ethan's lawyer presented the archive, Mira's screenshots, Owen's statement, the Polaroid from the party, the cafe story, the final bar post with Garrett. The judge granted the dissolution, the apartment transfer, and the financial freeze. I moved to a smaller place across town. Garrett never called back. I learned that when you build your life on applause, you collapse the moment the room goes quiet.